My name is Helen Uffner, and I own Helen Uffner Vintage Clothing for the past 42 years. And what we do is we rent 1860s through about 1980s clothing and accessories to the film, the TV, theater, commercial industries, even costume and clothing designers that want to copy things.
The product that you have here are not replicas. They're not made. They are real clothes,
Yes.
as opposed to them being made in a costume shop.
Maybe 1% are costumes that we've gotten from shows afterwards, but the 99% are authentic, antique, and vintage pieces.
How did you get into this business?
I grew up with a European mother that had these beautiful handmade blouses from Austria. And she said when she was young, all she could afford was like one good blouse. So I got to appreciate workmanship. And I would also go to thrift shops all the time and find beautifully, handmade items, never thinking to wear them. I would just consider them art. My father would say, he was embarrassed because he used to say, we can afford to clothe you. How are we going to tell people that you get all your clothes in thrift shops? And years later, he would say, thrift shops? My daughter was the first to go to thrift shops. My parents are from Poland. After the war, they went to Belgium, and I was born. And my father had two brothers that had emigrated to New York. So we ended up coming to New York when I was little, and we stayed here.
When did you start Helen Uffner Vintage? And how did that come about?
Zelig was being done, a Woody Allen movie, and they had gone to a boutique in Soho, a friend of mine. They were collecting 1920s, and they asked where else they could go, and they said, well, a friend of mine has a lot of 1920s, and they came up to my apartment and they bought everything. And I thought, well, now I have an empty rack, but now I have to start collecting all over again. And I thought, well, what if I started renting instead? So basically, I started working out of my apartment. I started a business. I started doing a little bit of theater. I had friends that were in theater. They would tell other friends. And slowly but surely, it took about a year or two to start doing movies. And then I started doing a lot of film and a lot of TV. I did a lot of big movies out of my apartment, like Out of Africa, The Color Purple. And I have pictures of the designers like on my bed, like going through boxes, picking things. So it was weird. As the years went on, I had 11 storage spaces. So when I moved to my first big loft in the garment center, there were 600 cartons that came out of storage. It was like a holiday, like Christmas and Hanukkah rolled up in one. I would open things and not remember I had it and go, oh my God, this is gorgeous.
How do you go about finding things?
I mean, in the old days, you could find things in thrift shops. I would go to all the big antique fairs and spend tons of money bringing things back. Now, with the advent of the internet, everybody has a store, everybody's on eBay or Etsy, and it's really hard to find things. I'm always looking. I'm always open to buying more. There's probably nothing we need, but if something comes along, it's always exciting to see new things because these are things from another era and they're special. We get a lot of calls still on the phone from people whose families have passed away and who have clothing in closets. That's kind of a twofold gratification because I'm getting things that are wonderful to add and they're like our children. And they know that it's going to have another life. Somebody's going to take care of it, clean it, restore it, and use it for the theater. You just learn by collecting. I'm a huge collector. I collect other things too. And if you have an interest in it, you want to learn about it. And I do a lot of research. So if I have a question about something, I'll ask someone else or I'll do my research on the internet or in books. And ultimately, it turns out that I can probably date something within 4 years. So I don't know if that's a wonderful skill to have. It's a strange one, but it works.
Do you have a favorite period?
I do like the Edwardian period very much. I love the construction of some of the items. And then I'll go forward to the New Look, Dior's New Look, and some items in the 50s that are just beautifully constructed as well.
So how do you go about upkeeping, washing? I mean, some of these things are very, very old.
Yeah. I take everything home that's cotton, linen, that's washable, and I hand wash everything. I'm very careful. I don't want to send those things to the dry cleaner. And I have to say, there's nothing more satisfying than getting like a rolled up Victorian stained dress that hasn't been washed in maybe 100 years and then turning it into a perfect thing of beauty. I don't use a sewing machine anymore, but I do a lot of hand mending. And we ask that items are mended with original fabric, nothing that would be out of the ordinary for the period too.
Is this a 9-to-5 job?
No, it's more like like an 8 to 11 job. But I love doing it. And I love the people that we interact with too, because the designers become friends and it's just one big family.
Normally, how many people do you have working here with you?
Normally, in the past, I've had 3 full-time. Lately, it's been 2 full-time, and then I have between 2 and 3 part-time.
And how do you go about acquiring help?
I've been really lucky. Sometimes I'd advertise, but most of the time I get a lot of people who are inquiring whether I'm hiring. My main assistant now was an intern. I've hired a few interns. We've had an intern program at least a good 30 years. We're kind of proud of it because a lot of the students and a lot of, we've had interns in their 50s and they want to make a career change. And they've gone on to be dressers, they've gone on to be costume designers.
Talk to me about some of your favorite projects that you've had over the years.
Well, I have one project that I'm very, it's a tiny, tiny little project. I got a call that there was going to be a short that was about Treblinka. They didn't have a lot of money and they wanted to know how much it would cost to rent all the costumes. So I found out what the subject matter was, and it so happened that I had a lot of direct relatives, uncles and grandparents that were all killed there. So I said, tell you what, I'm going to give you everything for free, and it was several $1,000s worth, if you can give me a dedication at the end. And I took my mother to the opening night, and she was just really touched. So that's like a forever now that I have. I like huge period movies. I mean, those are fun. We actually have 4 Emmy citations. The costume designer on a TV show gets an Emmy award. He lists people in his group that he thinks should also get acknowledgement, and we get a certificate from the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. We used to do a lot of Saturday Night Live for years and years and years, but this season they're being careful. They're doing everything, I think, in-house. So they used to come every Friday to pick things. I don't think that anybody knew how tenuous this situation was. The week before, 2 weeks before, production started thinking about shutting down. Towards the end of the week, my assistant Eric was going to go on vacation, just take Friday off. Then he called and he said, should I come back on Monday? And I said, Eric, I think that I'm going to close down. I don't think it's safe. Why don't we wait and see what happens? I still paid my staff at least half salary just to stay home for a month, because who knew? Of course, then I couldn't anymore, and everybody went on unemployment. I am now here alone because there's just not enough, work to warrant everybody coming back. Our rent has gone up, not down. The positive thing, if you can say, during this time is I think people have started to appreciate what we do because they've been home watching all these movies and reenactments, theater productions on television that we all worked so hard on, so they see what we've added to the industry. Maybe it's time for me to eventually retire, but I want to see this go on. And it would be nice if New York was a city that really championed its arts and nonprofit groups. The city is trying to have productions brought in all the time. They're really pushing with tax credits. And what is the point if we can't supply them with clothes? The emperor will literally have no clothes. I just hope, for the sake of all our industries, that things will eventually get back to normal. We're all in this together, so we have to help each other.
If you had to go back and do it all over again, would you?
Would I do it? Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else that brings me so much joy. Even now I'll go through the racks and see something and I'll go, oh my God, look how that's made. That is amazing work. It just brings me so much pleasure. You know, why do something that you don't love?